Hey guys, this is Eric from Miller Music, and today we're talking all about how to record drums in your home studio. It's on my mind because I'm getting ready to record with my band, True North Rising, and drums is the first thing that we do to get started with that. But before we get started, please make sure to subscribe to this channel and hit the notification button for updates. All right, so step one in recording is to just make sure that you have all of your drums sounding really good first before you start recording. So that means making sure there's no clicking noises, there's no ringing in your drum heads, there's no squeaky noises. So just really making sure that they sound really good, all tuned up before you start recording, so that you don't have to tweak them later. You can get really the best sound going into the microphone before you start, okay? The second thing is when you're setting up all of your cables, I always like to label my cables so that I know, like, okay, this is going to be the kick drum mic, this is the snare drum mic, this is the overhead. So if you need to change it or reroute things in mid-recording session, you have everything labeled, you know exactly where it goes. It just makes it a little bit easier in the process, okay? The third thing is to make sure that your preamps, to make sure that the levels are conservative, so that because drummers, as they get into the song, they start playing with the bass and the drums, they start playing louder. And the worst thing that could happen is that you have a great take, but you clip, halfway through the song, and you can't really fix that afterwards. Clipping just sounds bad. It's distortion. It's no good. So make sure that you take some time setting all of your levels in the beginning with the drums, making sure that nothing goes, too loud, and giving plenty of headroom in with your preamps so that they don't clip. Okay. We're going to be using 6 microphones today. So we have one in the kick, we have one in the snare drum, then we have 2 in the overheads that I usually pan left and right. And then we have one on the floor tom and then one on the rack. So one on the tom, on each tom. And this is a clip here of Alex. He's playing just a straight drum groove, and there's no effects on this, no compression, EQ, reverb. So it's just the flat drums. Okay, let's give it a listen. Okay, so this is my snare drum microphone. This is an SM57. It's a dynamic microphone, so it's really good for snare drums, so it won't clip for really loud sounding things like a snare drum. I have it placed about an inch or two above the snare drum head. For the kick drum, I have a Shure Beta 52, and I placed that pretty close to the drum head. You can see that. Because I like the way it sounds with a little bit more of the beater sound, as opposed to placing it further back where you get more of the kind of boomy sound of the drum. It's kind of more airy if you place it back there. Then for our overheads, I have 2 Rode NT3, and these are condenser microphones. Condenser microphones are just really good for capture. They're more sensitive than a dynamic microphone and good for capturing room sounds. So this will capture the cymbals, the hi-hat, as well as the toms, and just the overall general sound of the drums. And usually I pan those left and right when mixing. For the overhead, I just have another Shure. This is an SM58. It's actually a vocal mic, but it sounds good on the toms, tom 1 and tom 2. And then for the floor tom, same thing. I have another, this is actually an Audio Technica drum, but it's a dynamic microphone and sounds really good, just for a loud floor tom. So that's it for the miking of the drum set. All right, so this is what the drum tracks look like inside of a DAW. This is Studio One, and you can see that all of the drum tracks are in red, so I like to keep them all the same color, just to help me organize them and just to know what they are. I have a bass track up here that's purple, and I think a guitar track down here that's blue. But this just helps me, keep everything organized. One thing about how I like to set everything up is I create a drum bus. So I route everything, all of the drum tracks into a drum bus. And you can see they're all red over here as well. I'm going to turn off this EQ. And I send them all over to this drum bus, which I've created right here. And that way I can just put the effects onto that drum bus instead of adding all of the effects onto each drum channel. It saves a lot on processing power. And I just think it's a simpler way of doing things, and it applies those effects across all of the channels. So it's a general way to do things that's a little bit faster, but I think it's a little bit more efficient. You may find that you still need to tweak things, maybe the kick drum or the snare a little bit individually, but this is a really fast way to do them. So let's just give it a listen. And so this is just flat. I bring in the bass. So they sound pretty good without doing anything really to them, and that's really what I try to do, is just get everything sounding as good as possible without starting to add in effects. I think you can run into a little trouble if you're always saying, well, I'll fix it later in the recording with adding effects, but I'd rather try to fix it up front, get a really good sound ahead of time, and then tweak things if I need to. If we go back over into the mixing window, we can hear what it sounds like with the effects on them. So we'll just play that same track. I'm going to mute the bass. So let's just give that a listen. So this is no effects. And then if I add the effects in, so I have here a fat channel, which is a compressor. Then I have going into a Pro EQ and going into a room reverb. So basic, compression, EQ, and reverb. Again, I've saved this from a preset that I created from a different session. But this is basic things you would add to any drum channel or drum track. If you look here, this is the Pro EQ. And you can tweak things. Also, just to note, what I like to try to do first is to do what is called deductive EQ. So if there's a frequency that I don't like, I try to find that frequency and then eliminate it rather than boost something else. So you may need to do this by making up the gain later on, but this is usually, it's a common technique, but I find that it helps to get me a better sound. And then a basic room reverb, and you can just play with this, how big you want it to sound. I have a pretty small sound, but you can play around with how much you want of the mix in that. Let's go back a little bit so you can hear. I wanted a large hall sound. This gives you a bigger sound. That's a real small room. So there's certain things you can play around with. I'm not going to go into all that today. Alex, the drummer in our band, is really, really good. So I know that he'll get the job done and sound great. So thanks, guys, for watching this. We'll see you in the next video. All right, guys, that's it for today. Please make sure to subscribe to this channel, hit the notification button, and leave a comment. If you have any questions or if you have success recording drums a different way, I'd love to hear about it, so let me know. All right, thanks so much. See you in the next video. Bye-bye.